Recently, there have been a series of train collisions and bridge collapses in India. On June 2nd, 120 people were killed and more than 800 were injured in the collision of 3 trains in Odisha state. On June 4th, a 1.7 billion bridge under construction across the Ganges collapsed again. Domestic media are discussing why India's infrastructure capabilities are so poor. It is true that China's infrastructure also has many problems such as being curt and cutting corners, but in comparison, the quality and capabilities of India's infrastructure are indeed inferior to those of China. Seeing this, many people will feel a little relieved. Because China's population began to decline, India's population has reached 1.415 billion, surpassing China to become the world's largest. But now Western countries hope to transfer the industrial chain to India and let India replace China. This makes many people with national self-esteem nervous, fearing that India will come from behind and surpass China. Will India catch up and overtake China soon? On the surface, India has a population advantage. Its land area is not small, and its arable land area is larger than that of China. It is very possible to catch up with China. Some foreign scholars also hold this view. It is believed that after China's rapid development, the next one should be India. Big companies such as Apple and Samsung have begun to transfer their production plants to India. India's software outsourcing industry and generic drug industry have developed well, so many people worry that India will soon overtake and replace China. India's economy has also grown rapidly in recent years. In 2022, its total GDP will reach $3.4 trillion, surpassing the former Susie reign, the United Kingdom, and ranking 5th in the world, second only to the United States, China, Japan, and Germany. Subsequently, Modi announced that India will soon make India's GDP reach $5 trillion, making it the world's third largest economy after China. Modi has always had a superpower dream, and even proposed the dream of India becoming a developed country by 2047. It seems that Indians are ambitious, and many people are very confident in India's development, but those who really understand the essence of economic development know that economic development is not a demographic phenomenon, and it is not something that can be developed quickly with a large number of people. After a comprehensive analysis, the author believes that India cannot replicate the miracle of China's rapid economic growth, and it is difficult to catch up and replace China in a short period of time. At least in the next 50 years, India's economy is unlikely to catch up with China. Mainly based on 4 reasons. One is that Indians lack the cultural genes for rapid economic development. This point of view is estimated to be unfamiliar to many people. Does a country's economic development have cultural genes? The author believes that there is, and it is the most basic factor to promote the country's economic development. Although some of Weber's Protestant theory and the spirit of capitalism cannot withstand scrutiny, his view that the Protestant spirit is more conducive to economic development is reasonable. If you look at the history of economic development in the past 200 years, you will find that countries influenced by Protestantism and Confucian culture have the best economic development. First of all, Protestant countries such as Britain, Holland, America, Germany, France, and Scandinavia took the lead in economic development and have always been the leaders in global economic development. Other Catholic and Orthodox countries have followed the development under the influence of Protestant countries, but they have always been inferior to Protestant countries. Followed by Japan, the 4 Asian tigers, including later China, countries in the Confucian cultural circle achieved rapid economic development after World War II. The best economic development in the world is in these 2 regions. However, the Middle East, South Asian Islamic cultural areas, Latin American cultural areas, and African cultural areas have always had poor economic development. What is the main reason? Protestantism advocates the values of freedom, pragmatism, hard work, and focusing on real life, so it is beneficial for people to focus on improving material life and developing the economy. The Confucian culture is a secular culture that lacks spiritual life. What people pursue is promotion and wealth and better material life, and the long-term autocratic rule and hard life have created the habit of hard work and hard work. With this kind of people's cultural and ideological foundation, once there is a peaceful and stable environment and the people work diligently in pursuit of material life, the economy will soon be able to develop. With a peaceful and stable environment after World War II, the economies of Japan and the 4 Asian tigers quickly took off, while China's reform and opening up centered on economic construction. With a peaceful and stable environment for 40 years, it has also achieved rapid economic development. However, Catholicism and Orthodox churches are more conservative in thinking, and they have more constraints on people's thoughts and behaviors, so economic innovation is not as good as Protestantism. Islam, on the other hand, mainly emphasizes that people should observe the precepts, pay attention to spiritual life, and despise wealth and material life, so it restrains people's motivation for economic development. Latin American countries are influenced by Spanish Catholicism and the autocratic ideology of the king. In addition, the Aborigines are still in the era of tribal culture, and the general behavior is loose, which is not conducive to economic development. The minds of Africans are generally influenced by traditional tribal culture. People generally lack economic ambition, contentment, and loose behavior. Coupled with the lack of government regulation and control, it is naturally difficult for the economy to develop. The traditional culture of India is Hinduism, and the number of religious believers is as high as 82%, that is, 1.1 billion people. The other 16% of Indians practice Islam. Hinduism advocates caste hierarchy, karma, and soul reincarnation. It teaches people to despise real material life, practice asceticism, and combine with the soul of God to transcend reincarnation. Therefore, Indian people generally lack the motivation to pursue material life like East Asians. They don't want to work hard for money, but enjoy doing hard work. Many rich Indians take time to practice asceticism and meditation to improve their spirituality. Soul. Indians are willing to do asceticism and lack the traditional culture of pursuing material life and wealth motives, which makes Indians naturally lack the genes for economic development ideologically and psychologically. This is the deepest root cause why India has established a democratic government independently and has had a peaceful development environment for more than 70 years, but its economy has not developed. The influence of this traditional ideology and culture cannot be changed in a short period of 10 or 20 years, which determines that it is difficult for India's economy to sustain rapid development like East Asia and China. Second, India does not have a strong government that promotes economic development. An important point of view in development economics is that for late developing countries, the government's management ability has an important impact on economic development, and a weak government is not conducive to economic development. The rapid economic development of East Asian countries has a lot to do with the strong promotion of the government's industrial policies. The rapid development of China's economy is directly promoted by the government. The Chinese government takes advantage of the centralization system and the favorable conditions of the state-owned land system to obtain a huge amount of funds exceeding 50% of fiscal revenue through land sales, which are used for urban and infrastructure construction, to promote the rapid development of real estate and the large-scale demolition and construction of cities. Preferential conditions such as land attract investment and build factories, which promotes the rapid development of real estate, infrastructure, and manufacturing, making China quickly become the world's factory in just 10 years. The Indian government is a decentralized federal system, and the power of the Chinese government is also restricted by the decentralization of checks and balances. 80% of the land is privately owned. This means that the Indian government cannot effectively promote economic plans according to the wishes of the Chinese government, such as land demolition. The problem has become a major constraint in India's rapid promotion of infrastructure and real estate development, making it difficult for the government's economic development plan to advance as scheduled. For example, the famous slums in big cities in India would have been demolished and built into tall buildings long ago in China, but the Indian government couldn't do it. The Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed railway jointly built by India and Japan was announced in 2013 and started construction in 2017, but it has not been completed for almost 10 years. The main problem is that the basic problem of land acquisition has not been completely resolved, because the cost of expropriating private land is very high and it is very difficult. The Modi government has proposed an ambitious plan to invest trillions of dollars to promote economic development through infrastructure construction. However, infrastructure construction, especially large-scale projects such as highways, large bridges, and large dams, will carry out large-scale infrastructure construction and provide industrial infrastructure. Supporting infrastructure, such as electricity, logistics, capital, land acquisition, etc., must have a strong government with concentrated power and resources, and the Indian government has no such ability at all, so it is difficult to implement various economic plans. China can achieve a high growth rate of around 10%, but it is difficult for India because the government lacks the resource capacity to implement the plan. Third, India lacks economic openness, which is not conducive to making full use of foreign capital and technology to accelerate development. The best way for a post-developing country to develop rapidly is to open its doors, make full use of foreign resources, and use international funds, advanced equipment, and technology, so that it can quickly narrow the gap with advanced countries and quickly establish its own industrial system. China is a typical example. It implements the policy of reform and opening up. Through various preferential policies, it even gives foreign investment supranational treatment, and vigorously introduces foreign equipment, technology, capital, and management. In 30 years, it has established the most complete industrial system in the world. Become a veritable world factory, learn advanced foreign manufacturing technology, and become a global infrastructure maniac. However, due to various reasons such as culture, national self-esteem, and protection of national industries, India has various concerns and restrictions on opening up to the outside world. Some fields do not allow foreign capital to enter, the rights and interests of foreign capital are not protected, foreign investment is lack of preferential conditions, and government departments are severely corrupt. The service efficiency is not high, etc., so that India's pace of opening up to the outside world has not been large enough, and it has not been able to quickly introduce and learn advanced foreign technologies, which has slowed down the improvement of its industrial technology level. For example, when it became independent in 1947, India already had the longest railway network in Asia built during the British colonial period, with a railway mileage of more than 50,000 kilometers. This was originally a very strong basic industrial foundation, but now after 70 years, India's railways are basically still the same, and have not been well maintained and technologically upgraded to play a role. Now Indian Railways has a total track length of 126,000 kilometers, more than 68,000 kilometers of routes, and 7,335 stations, ranking 4th in the world. But today's Indian railway technology and maintenance are not good. The British Daily Telegraph stated that the old railway is an important part of India's soul. Some special express trains can reach speeds of 160 kilometers per hour or slightly higher, but the average speed of long-distance express trains across the country is only 50 kilometers per hour, while ordinary passenger and commuter trains can barely exceed 32 kilometers per hour. The average speed of freight trains is about 24 kilometers per hour, and the maximum speed is only 55 to 75 kilometers per hour. At present, 7 trunk lines, which account for 16% of India's entire railway network, carry 41% of the traffic volume. A problem with one train may have a huge chain effect across India. There will be close to 18,000 railway accidents in India in 2021, with more than 16,000 deaths and 1,852 injuries. From 2017 to 2021, more than 100,000 people in India will die in railway accidents. If India cannot openly utilize foreign resources, technology, and capital, is unwilling to admit its own gap, and humbly learns advanced foreign technology, it will be impossible for India to develop rapidly and narrow the gap with China. Fourth, India's national education level is low, and it cannot provide a large amount of mature industrial labor force. To develop backward countries, the main thing is to develop industry and realize industrialization, and the key to industrial development is to have a large number of labor forces who have received basic education and can quickly learn to be competent for factory work. The rapid development of China's manufacturing industry and the smooth transfer of industrial chains from developed countries have a lot to do with China's large number of basic educated, disciplined, hard-working laborers. In this regard, India has a big gap. India has a good level of higher elite education, and the government invests a lot, training many international software talents and CEOs of large companies, but India's basic education is poor, the government invests little, and the basic education level of the people is low. Although the government passed free and compulsory education, the constitution stipulates that children aged 6 to 14 must receive school education, and the primary school enrollment rate has reached 97%, but only 60% can graduate. Due to poor economic conditions, primary school students have to go home to take care of their younger siblings, work. The illiteracy rate in India today is as high as 25%. Education can not only improve young people's work skills, but also change their ideas, so that the young generation can adapt to industrial production and urbanized life. In addition, Indians are deeply influenced by religion, and their personalities are generally detached and loose. They do not have a strong sense of collective cooperation and ability. They are not as good at obedience and discipline as Chinese people. collective cooperation experience in large-scale project construction. This is not good for its development of industrial economy. However, social and cultural factors such as the caste system, the lack of a major ethnic group, and the lack of a common language have led to poor mobility of the labor force in India and a slow increase in the urbanization rate. In the early 1990s, the urbanization levels of China and India were basically the same, but from 1990 to 2021, the urbanization rate of China's population increased from 26.4% to 62.5%, and that of India's population increased from 25.5% to 35.4%. India's low level of basic education, insufficient accumulation of human capital, and shortage of high-quality and high-skilled personnel make it difficult to effectively meet the needs of the rapid development of the manufacturing industry and industrial upgrading. It seems that the above analysis can draw a clear conclusion. Although India has a population advantage, its historical genes, government system, ideology, education, etc. determine that it cannot replicate the miracle of China's rapid economic development, and it is difficult to become a new country. World Factory. At present, India's per capita GDP is only $2,600, and China's per capita GDP is $12,600, which is less than one-fifth of China's, so the gap is still very large, and there is no need to worry about India catching up with China soon. And Modi's claim that India will become a developed country in 2047, that is, 5 years later, is a beautiful ideal. The probability of China becoming a developed country in 25 years is very low, let alone India.